Welcome back, guys. Episode 2 of Leading Leaders. I'm here with one of my personal favorite people. She is a very awesome leader. She is a motivated leader in my family's life, in particularly. She's helped my family through a lot of things, and I asked her to come on this show because I believe she has amazing information for y'all guys. So,
we'll see.
Melissa, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, my name's Melissa Houck, and I'm a mother of 4. Do I need to just stare at that or stare at you? It don't matter.
It
Okay.
don't matter.
That's weird, staring at the camera. Yeah. Okay. A mother of 4. I was born and raised in Seminole, Oklahoma. Then I got married in '96 of September and had our first baby in February of '99. And then we moved to Alaska for ministry purposes in May of '99, June, May. Now we're back to Oklahoma, Seminole of all places. Never thought I'd be back here, but here we are. And raising our kids. Our 3 older boys are raising themselves because they're out of school and all the things. And then we still have our daughter at home. And so that's just a little bit about me.
That's awesome. I think it's funny because I even talked about in the first episode how awesome it is how God moves, because literally me and Michaela came to starting point looking for a family to get together, and then literally y'all guys came at the same time. So y'all
funny.
It was crazy how God works.
I didn't really know how long y'all had been attending starting point.
Now it will be almost 3 years.
Oh, ours too.
Yeah.
Easter time was us.
Yeah, it's almost. I'm telling you, we almost started right at the right time.
That is so funny.
It's crazy.
Huh? All these 3 years, I did not know that.
All right. Well, yeah. I'm gonna start asking you some questions and just give me the best answers that you got.
Okay. No right or wrong.
Nope.
It's my opinion.
How do you differentiate between being called in an area of ministry and just serving in an area of ministry to be a servant?
Oh. Okay, I did not read these questions before we started, but how do I differentiate between being called in an area of ministry and just serving? Well, I think the difference to me would be if you're called, I think your passion is different. If you're called, I think you put more into it. You seek the Lord more. Let's just say. And I just think that if you're just serving is helping basically. And so I just think you do what is needed at the time, but you don't look ahead in ministry, in where you're serving and where you're called. And so if you're called, I think you're just constantly looking how to be better, what I can do to make, let's say youth, for instance, like you have your Wednesday night youth service and you're like, oh man, that was okay, but what can we do next week to improve and to make it more better? But I think if you're just serving, you're just there in the moment and then you're waiting for the next moment. You're not really putting any thought processes to it. You're not
just filling a void.
I don't feel like you're searching and looking for things to make whatever you're doing better. And so
to me, that's where I feel like a lot of people find themselves is like, because even like, and I'm not saying I definitely don't where I'm at now, because God literally told me that this is where we're supposed to be. But in other areas of my life in ministry, don't get me wrong, I definitely wanted to be in it. I was in it when I was in it, but you always felt like there was that missing piece. This is where I'm supposed to be for right now, but is this really where God is actually calling me to be?
For sure. And I love serving. I think, in my opinion, I love it just because I love helping people. I love helping to improve things and not just being like, okay, here's the food. This is what we're doing. Just get it out and be done, clean it up and, whatever, or, whatever it may be, how you serve. But I love serving people. Ministry is just so different when you're called versus just when you're helping. And so
Well,
I don't know.
we all know that God's called us to have a servant's heart anyways.
Right,
And
for sure.
for me, being able to find where God's calling me,
Mm-hmm.
I had to start by serving.
Mm-hmm.
And people
And it's
take
humbling.
it for granted. Yeah.
It's very humbling, especially if you feel like you're called to a certain point of ministry, like youth, let's say youth, because this is, your wheelhouse, and it used to be my wheelhouse. I just feel like, yeah, it's just a humbling thing to do. Nobody wants to clean a toilet. Nobody wants to sweep a floor. Nobody wants to take out the trash, but that's what serving does when you're serving and helping. That's just part of it.
And it's crazy, like how you said, once it becomes your wheelhouse, once you're in your wheelhouse, to me, it's not at a point of obligation anymore.
It's not a
like,
struggle.
Oh, I got to do this. No, it's like, okay, yeah, the trash got to go out, whatever. This is
For
normal.
sure.
This is where we're supposed to be at,
But some people, that's beneath them.
Yeah.
They think, oh, like if I'm called to the ministry and I'm, the head of whatever department, then I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
That's what y'all are for,
Yeah.
You should always, I feel like it's just a humbling place to be.
Like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I feel and the whole thing with this leading leaders is because I feel like if you're called to be my leader, leading is by example. That's the biggest part of leadership. And if you can't show me how to lead, then you're not really my leader. Yeah, you might hold a title and hold a position, but if you can't actually show me, hey, yeah, you're doing this good, but hey, you might want to like tweak it around a little bit like this, or hey, let me help you do this. And I think that's where people, like you said, fall into that. Well, that's beneath me. I don't need to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's just like seeing trash on the floor at the church, in the sanctuary, or if a toilet's clogged or anything, and if you don't stop and pick that up, it doesn't matter who you are. You don't have to even have a label on you.
Yeah.
But to me, that speaks volumes. If you stop and notice and pick that up, like that ain't mine. A lot of people say, well, that's not mine. I see lots of water bottles, lots of coffee cups under the pews. I'm like, well, that ain't mine. I'm not picking it up. And it's like, listen, we're all called together.
Yeah.
Not so much called, but we're all in this together. And I just feel like it just speaks volumes to a person's character if I see you do something. Yeah. That's exactly right.
We're supposed to be leading our next generation up, right? And if our next generation sees us look, yep, no, that's not mine. I'm not doing that. What are they going to do?
Which is what this generation does.
Exactly.
They're like, that's not mine. My own daughter, I can attest to that. Well, that's not mine. Well, it doesn't matter. It needs to be done. So do it. Basically.
That's what I did. I agree. I've been doing the same thing with my kids. Man, it's not. I understand that it's not yours, but I'm asking you to step up.
That's right. Take care of it. That's right. Because you never know who's watching you, ever.
So, how important is it to know the people that you are serving with?
I think there's a fine line. I think in ministry, and I don't know if this is one of the questions, but it's hard. I didn't say this, but we used to youth pastor in Alaska, and then we were pastors, and then we served on the district level. And a lot of people told me when we became pastors, don't make friends. And I get it, because, you have a church and you're trying to shepherd, the flock, and if you're too close to somebody, well then, if you're telling them all the church's problems, well then that in turn becomes like a gossip session. And I just think that I think you should have a relationship with them, but I temper on. I'm a private person, and I don't like to tell a lot of air my dirty laundry, so to speak, because as I was talking to Michaela, your wife, you just can't trust people.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a fine line in having a friendship with the ones you're serving versus a more deeper relationship with those people. I don't mean to not like go hang out or anything once in a while, but
actually be on And it's kind of like what I said to my dad: is you know people, and then you actually know people.
Right.
There's way two different things.
There's big trust factors
very much so.
with serving in ministry and all the things. I'm very guarded.
Well, and I believe I was actually talking to another one of our leaders about having biblical friends. Like, what does that actually mean to have biblical friends? Well, have somebody that you can actually confide in and not be able to worry about, which is so hard now in our days to even find anybody.
It is,
because if
people talk.
It's almost like if I'm not talking to my wife, how do I know that I can trust somebody?
Right.
Not to air out dirty laundry. And like you said, I'm not going to gossip. Sometimes you have to have somebody to be able to talk to, because other than going and taking it to God,
right,
you have to be able to, hey man, like, this is really bothering me. Can you talk to me about it?
Sad that it's gotten to that point with church, because church should be a place where you can come and air your dirty laundry, so to speak, and to talk about the hard things of life, to get with your life groups or whatever, and be able to be like, you guys, I'm really struggling with this. I really need prayer. Instead, we have people just go and talk about it behind your back, or, oh, I can't believe that she has kids that are so unruly, and
turns
like,
into a circle.
Oh my goodness, I thought she was a Christian, and oh my word, And so I just feel like it's a sad place to be with the church, that you can't trust 100%.
And that's what, like, for me personally, what kills me is listening to people say, oh, well, I can't believe you do that. You're a Christian, dude. Have you looked at God's disciples? There were some rough people, but guess what? They were with God. They walked with God. And that, to me, that's what a Christian is somebody who's trying to be Christ-like, right? I'm not perfect. You're not perfect.
Well, no.
Ain't none of us going to be perfect. But as long as I have that relationship with God and I am living life the best that I can to follow His path, like, it's crazy how people can judge somebody knowing that they have their own skeletons in their closet.
Oh, and you see that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you who are pointing the finger, three are pointing back at you. It's the old saying. Like, excuse me. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know if I answered that, but
no, it was good. I liked it. All right, so how do you learn to truly speak Jesus into somebody's life as a worship leader? Because I know you are our worship leader, and this comes from, man, watching you on stage. Like, you can just see God's presence move through you, and like, how do you know when God's telling you to speak to somebody while you're doing worship?
Yeah, that's a tough one. When I know that God wants me to say something, or the Holy Spirit through, I either am like gonna throw up or pee my pants, and if I don't, I feel like I can't even get the words out in a song if I don't say what God is telling me to say. Because we all, and I say we all because we all question, is that you, Lord? Are you really telling me to do that? Or is that, just my thoughts, or just because I see somebody, Lord, are you sure that's you? Well, if she sings that song one more time, then I'll know it's you. Wait, if she does the bridge 2 more times, then Lord, I'll know it's you. It's like, I just have that feeling, like that butterfly feeling in my stomach, but almost that I'm going to throw up if I don't get it out. And then I won't even be able to sing the song, because the Lord's like, I told you to say whatever. And, I don't know. That's just how I roll.
Yeah.
How the Holy Spirit talks to me through worship. And a lot of times, there's been times that I don't, because I'm just like, I just don't know. What if I get it wrong?
Yeah.
Like going and praying for somebody out in the congregation, leaving the stage and knowing that God has told me to pray for that person, but still sometimes I'm like, I don't know, Lord.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really what, the Lord's not going to tell us anything bad to do, obviously. So you should always, basically go with your gut. It's just,
I
I
think
don't know.
like one of my crazy things that I struggle with personally is it my place, right? Like
Right.
it
Mm-hmm.
is. Am I overstepping
Right.
by doing
Uh-huh.
what I feel like God's telling me to say?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes with perfectly with youth. Sometimes I feel like God's like, hey, you need to say this, and then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like I don't want to step on nobody's toes.
Right.
You know, and
But
then
then
like you,
I feel like we shouldn't even have to worry about that.
yeah,
Like if God's telling us, obviously he's telling us, sorry, for a reason,
mm-hmm.
because somebody else isn't being obedient,
Yeah,
or he knows that they're going to accept it better coming from you
yeah,
versus the youth pastor or another leader. I just feel like obviously God knows
yeah. God
all
knows what
things.
he's
We
doing.
don't, but God does. And I just think sometimes, yeah, he'll pass over the leaders. He'll pass over,
Mhm.
the people in charge and give you an opportunity to be like, I'm not saying you're not a leader. I'm just saying
Yeah,
give you an opportunity to speak life into somebody and to be that help
be
and
that
know
voice in
that
that time.
they can open up
Mhm.
and tell you things that maybe they wouldn't tell, a pastor or whatever. So,
Right, and I'm a firm believer that God knows who needs to go talk to somebody. Like you said,
oh
he's
yeah,
definitely calling somebody
oh
out.
yeah,
Me, I'm not. You know, I got tattoos and stuff like that, so I can
I
I
do
can
too.
easily go and talk to somebody that's covered in tattoos.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
crazy that somebody coming into a church automatically like, oh well, who can I talk to?
Mhm.
But there's still that edge, right, coming into the
Mhm.
church. But if I'm going up, hey man, what's up? How you doing? And
Mhm.
he's like, oh well, this guy has tattoos too. This
Right.
guy's kind of rough around the edges too.
Right.
Maybe I can talk to him. And but like you said, I'm a firm believer in God knows. Hey, you need to
Mhm.
go talk to that person
Mhm.
because he's gonna accept it from you.
Well, and I never want to be, and I'll be honest, which not that I'm not honest, but I never want to be that person where somebody comes into church and obviously their lifestyle is not up to standards of the church.
Yeah,
They may be homeless or they may be covered in tattoos because let's face it, I know it's the norm these days, but used to
yeah,
wasn't. You were looked down upon when you
yeah,
you were covered in tattoos or whatever. And I don't want to be that person that is like, oh, they stink, or ooh, look at them,
yeah,
or ooh, they're not in my class, or and I being when I was younger, I may have done that a few times just because out of that's just how people were and how people were treated. And so then you mirror that because
yeah,
that's what you see. And I never want to be that one that shuns the needy,
yeah,
that
one
shuns
hundred
the one
percent.
that needs, God the most.
Yeah,
Who am I?
yeah.
And so,
Right, and it's crazy because I had a we had a guy come into the church that everybody else like after the fact, oh, did you smell him? No, I was actually praying with him. Like I didn't
yeah,
smell him at all. And
yes,
I'm a firm believer
yes.
that um that God gets in that as a mediator, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he takes out that all of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff that you
Mm-hmm.
would normal people would see as a
Right.
disconnect factor
Mm-hmm.
because hey man, this guy needs me too,
Right.
more than some
More.
people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I'm a firm believer that God creates that median to where you
Mm-hmm.
can bridge the gap.
Mm-hmm. But then you're judging that person. Well, you need it more than this person because the way you're
Yeah.
acting. But neither here nor there. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so here's another good one. Oh, this one is
Yeah.
a good question for you,
Uh-huh.
and I
Mm-hmm.
get some good insight.
Yeah.
Will my children be held to a higher standard because I am in
Mm-hmm.
ministry?
And I say yes. That question really triggers me because had I known when we said yes how my children were going to be um, looked upon, judged,
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have said no.
Yeah.
Just because I just think that you're in that spotlight And, pastors' kids, the PKs, have this reputation, God love them, and like they can't be human.
Yeah.
I just feel like they are held to a higher standard. And I think my kids, not my daughter so much, but my boys, my 3 older boys, were held to more of a higher standard, and they were, in sports and, school and all that stuff. And they were knuckleheads. I'm the first to tell you, to be honest, they were knuckleheads in middle school and high school. And they were not the example of a preacher's kid. Well, they were the label, the PKs. Yeah. They were totally that. They lived up to that standard. But they, I say it all the time. Me and my brother were raised in a single mom home. And my brother is a drug addict, been in prison. He's trying to get his life together, but and then there's me, who I'm married, have kids, go to church. Not that that's saying that I'm a saint, but we live 2 different lifestyles, but we were raised by the same mom. And I just think it's a choice that you choose how you want your life to turn out. So if you were abused by your dad, doesn't mean that you need to be an abuser when you grow up. You've got to make a choice and to make a stand. And I just think there have been multiple times when we were in Alaska, how my kids were, I don't like to use the word judged, but that's just all that comes to mind, how they were judged. Well, your parents are the pastors and they're acting like that,
Yeah.
And so, yes, 100% they will be held to a higher standard. Now, whether they live up to that or not, it's up to them. Unfortunately, our boys didn't really get to have a youth pastor. We had kids pastors, but we didn't ever have a youth pastor for my boys. And so I think that hurt a lot, hurt me a lot, just because I feel like that was something that was a void in their life. Not to say that they would have been saints, or not to say that they wouldn't have gone through the struggles that they did. But I feel like if they had that another influence other than their parents, because you're just like, oh, my parents, nobody wants to listen to their parents give them advice, so I really feel like that was the void, and probably one mistake that I wish I would have been more aware about early on.
And you can't really consider it a mistake, because I know your boys, and they're all good. Like, they're not. They're none of them
not murderers.
None of them are sitting in jail or doing none of that.
Praise
stuff.
God.
So I know all your sons, and they're all good boys. So you can't say it was really a mistake, because it's the same thing that I told my dad was. My mom and dad were telling me, man, I'm sorry that you had to go through some of the stuff that you went through growing up. Man, don't be sorry. That made me who I am. All of the stuff that I had to go through, that I went through as a kid, that made me who I was.
Yeah.
Who I am now. Like, God couldn't use me like he used me now if I wouldn't have went through some of this.
Right. Well, I they're not bad kids by no means, but they're not serving God to their full capability. And so I think that just hurts more, because I just feel like that was a void in their walk, and could have helped.
I completely understand that.
Yeah.
All right, so I got another good question for you, and
okay,
the reason why me and my wife felt like this would be a really good question for you is because you had to go through it, right? So, is God calling me to relocate for his ministry? How did you and your husband know that?
Oh boy, do I have a great answer for this. I hope Billy watches this. I'm just kidding. I grew up in church, in the Pentecostal Church of God. And then my mom remarried and we moved to Arizona for 2 years. And then when we came back, was the end of my 5th grade year in school, beginning of my 6th grade year after that summer. And I started attending the Baptist church here locally with my grandparents. And I was heavily involved, loved it, was so active, and wouldn't trade my first Baptist days at all, because it was just a great impact in my life. And I always was like, oh, I would love to marry a youth pastor. It just looks so, it just seems so dreamy and just a great thing. But I didn't know, the backstory or behind the scenes, what went on. I'm just looking, the outside looking in, and thought it would just be so cool to marry a youth pastor. And Billy and I met up, and he was a youth pastor right before we started dating, and then we got married, and we continued to be the youth pastors. And I didn't think anything. I thought, okay, this is the greatest thing ever. It was fun. And then he gets a call. Hey, would you like to come to Alaska to, serve our youth department and be our youth pastors? And I was mad. I didn't see that part growing up. I didn't see that part where, and it happened, but I didn't see it. We had my youth pastor for a long time. And so I didn't see the part where God calls you somewhere else and you have to pick up and move. I didn't know that part of it. And so that really made me bitter. It really questioned a lot of things that I had given up for God, so to speak. Selfish. I was selfish. But I was mad. I was not happy. We didn't talk about it for like 3 months. Billy approached me about it. I feel like God's calling us to Alaska. I'm like, no, he's not. I don't want to talk about this no more. I just had my first baby, and all my family's here. And it was a February of 99. Talked a little bit about it. And every once in a while he'd bring it up. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready to talk about it. I don't want to move. And that it was Mother's Day of all things, my first Mother's Day. I finally had to tell my family that we were moving, because I knew, number one, he was the head of my household, and he felt like that was where God was calling. So when I married him, I took on his calling too.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that just because your spouse is called doesn't mean you're called, but actually a little bit, yeah, you are. Because how can your spouse be called and him serve to his full capacity if you're not behind him and serving with him and being called there too? And so we moved. I was just not happy. Just be honest. And that August, I came back to visit with Isaac, my son, and that was the time where you could still go down to the gate and wait until your plane got there, and then you tell your people goodbye, and they, you separate. And I got on the plane, and I almost turned around and walked off the plane. I'm like, I don't want to go back. Alaska's not for me. I don't want to do this. And I heard the Holy Spirit just say, do you want to raise your kids like you were raised? Being single, divorced parents, all the things. And I'm like, no. And it was the hardest 19 years of my life, just being away. Now, did I think that God wasn't calling us? No. I was mad about it because it was so far away and a place that I did not like. We would go to visit there, and I'm just like, this place is so depressing. I don't want to live here. Visiting was great, but living there, no. And we lived there for 19 years, and it was good for us. And I'm so glad we're not there now. But I have my best friend there, and Alaska was good to us, but we didn't want to retire there. And so relocating, it's a part of it, which I did not know. And it's not always fun at first, but God gives you little nuggets here and there to make you like, okay, Lord, I know you're in it. I know we had a great time there and made, great friends. And I felt like, I pray that we had a huge impact on people's lives there. And I don't want to sound like, oh my gosh, it was the worst thing ever. Yes and no, basically. And so, the relocating, had I known, I would have probably, I don't know so much if I would have wanted to marry a youth pastor so bad.
You're like, the outside look good.
Yeah, it's tough. It's hard on you. It's hard on your marriage. It's hard. Not so much your kids, because my kids, Isaac was 3 months old when we moved, so it wasn't like he didn't know anything different.
Yeah.
But it is hard on your marriage, I will say. If you're both not in it to win it, it's hard on your marriage. Yeah, and it was hard on our marriage for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just being real.
That's all I can ask.
And we'll be married 28 years in September, so we stuck with it.
Okay, so another good one that I know that you'll have a good answer for.
Oh, I don't know.
So, why does it feel like some people want to see you as a leader fail? And it's, and also that could be just you feeling that way. But why does it seem like that there are some people that are just there to watch the show, watch you fail in what your ministry?
Well, I think jealousy plays a big part in that. I mean, shame on you if you want to see somebody fail. I mean, really. But I think jealousy plays a big part of that because some people, well, let's say they were serving in a department and they were serving for a long time and they felt like, oh, maybe if, one day I could be the kids pastor, let's just take it there. Wow, I've been serving in the kids department for, over 5 years. And I'm thinking one day I would like to be the leader or whatever. And I think just jealousy plays a big part in every aspect of ministry. To see somebody fail, I think if you're not real, which when I was the pastor's wife, sorry, I keep touching that. When I was the pastor's wife, our congregation wasn't huge. It was like 40 people, but they said the one thing that we love about you as a pastor's wife is you're real. You don't come and put a fake smile on your face. You don't come and you just are like, it's you. It's who you are. Yeah. My kids say I have RBF, resting Bible face. But so they're like, we knew if you had a bad Sunday morning with your kids, like, there's always one kid. I always tell my kids, there's always one of you that is going to be in a bad mood on a Sunday morning. It doesn't matter if we all went to bed in a happy mood. Somebody's going to wake up in a bad mood and it's going to just throw your whole day off.
Yeah.
But you've got to, lead worship. You've got to preach the message. You've got to, greet the people, and you've got to be spot on all the things. And they said about you, the one thing I loved about you is you're real. You could tell when you were having a bad day and you could tell when you weren't. It's like, well, I mean, I don't want to be fake. I don't want to put on this front that, oh, everything's great. How I love Jesus. I hate your guts. Oh my gosh. Like I don't want to do that. And so I think if you're real with your people that you're leading, they don't have a reason to think about you failing. Yeah. They don't have a reason to want you to fail.
Yeah.
Because you're being real to them. You're like, wow, their kids act like that too. Oh, wow. Their husband and they fight. Wow. So many people think just because you're a leader, like everything's hunky-dory. Oh, we're Care Bears and rainbows. And, everything's like, woo, your life is going great. No, we all have struggles. We're not perfect. And you said that at the beginning. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
We should strive to be like Jesus and we should strive to be more like him, but we're not perfect. And we do have the moments that it's when you're most successful that you can come out of it on the other side saying, look what God did.
Yeah.
God fixed my marriage. God fixed my children. God fixed my relationship with my friends, or God fixed,
Yeah.
So.
And I loved Judah Smith said it in one of his messages. He said, we all got saved by grace, but now that we're saved by grace, it's I got to fix it now, which is ridiculous. It's crazy.
Right.
Because why would God save me and not want to help me fix all my issues?
Oh, for sure. And I've been saved for over 30 years and I still try to fix my own problems.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, God, you're not working fast enough. I need it now. I'm just like, Lord, where are you? Why? And so, yes, we're human and we try to fix it. And guess what? Ain't gonna get fixed.
That's all his timing anyways.
Oh, absolutely.
We always tried to rush things. And
that's absolutely. And you can always look back and say,
you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Oh, that's why. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So how do you deal with spiritual heartbreak?
Spiritual heartbreak.
I guess an example that I could give for me one of my spiritual heartbreaks was me and Michaela were being children's church pastors, doing everything that I thought was, oh, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do as a leader. And then, boom, we had a miscarriage. And then we're like, okay, yeah, God, we trust you. And then, boom, we had another one, right? And we're like, what's going on, man? Am I doing something wrong? Is it me? Like, so what do you do, or how do you get past that feeling of, God, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah. I can relate to your miscarriage story. I will go into that. But one thing I have related to recently is when we moved back to Oklahoma. Before we moved, I was seeking the Lord, and you know, I think this is best for our family. We don't want to retire here. Our kids are getting older, and I'm like, Lord, you make the way, you pave the way, you work it all out. Well, He worked out every single thing you could imagine: passports to traveling, to bringing stuff down, to, I mean, everything was like, wow, this is so God ordained, like, I know I've heard the Lord. And we get here to Oklahoma, and my husband can't find a job for a whole year. And you're just like, where did I miss the mark? Like, what in the world? Like, how in the world can you not find a job? McDonald's wouldn't hire him. He's overqualified, like all these things. And I'm like, Lord, did we miss it? And in the 5 years that we've been here, I ask myself all the time, Lord, did we miss it? Like, did we miss that one thing, that one little piece of the puzzle that you hadn't placed? We just kind of jumped the gun, maybe. And I don't believe that we did. I just think sometimes circumstances in life happen. And it's how we deal with those and how we react to those, I think, is our test of faith. And our walk in Christ. And so to say spiritual heartbreak, I've had quite a those since I've moved back. Like, and I throw up in God's face all the time about, Lord, I served you. I went to Alaska. I left my family. I did this, 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 this. And He says, and what?
I died for you.
Right. And okay, I'm sorry. I'm like, my life is not horrible by no means. There's always somebody worse off. You can see. And back to your miscarriage, I mean, I don't understand it. I don't. I literally don't. When you can have 3 healthy babies, 4 healthy babies, and then boom, one's not, coming, one's gone, one's, I don't understand it. I will never understand it. And that is a thing too. I'm like, Lord, we do so much for you in your name. And, it's back to that. But when you've done it unto me, you've done it unto the least, of these. And I just think it's just life. We're not exempt from life because we're Christians.
We're on my walk with Christ, and
nothing's going to happen to me. I'm just going to go frolic in the daisies, and my life's going to be perfect. And, but how can we, who's to say that us going through those things, that we can't reach somebody, speak life into somebody who's gone through those things, who isn't a Christian? How you can just because miscarriage used to not be talked about, and it still kind of is not talked about. That I've realized when we had ours back in 2009, and you wouldn't believe the people that are like, oh, I had one too. I'm like, I've known you for 10 years and I never knew this. Type thing. Like, it's not talked about. And I think, why not?
Well, it goes back into the and it's nothing to be ashamed about, right?
No,
it's something that you should never be ashamed of, but people are scared that, oh, you're going to judge me if this happens.
Well, we as female think, well, my body failed me. My body's not capable of, producing a healthy baby anymore, or whatever it is. But who's to say that God didn't, no, I'm not going to say He allowed it, but had it, that it happened, and that God is going to use that as a ministry tool
Yeah.
for somebody
Yeah,
else
that's just true.
who's going through
And
that.
I'll say for the male perspective is one of the things now looking back on it that I didn't see in the time is, dude, I shut myself off. I wasn't talking to I wouldn't even talk to Michaela about it.
Yeah.
I don't want nothing to do.
It creates a wedge.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. And one thing that I could press on for men, dude, if y'all are going through something like that, dude, talk to your wife, dude. That's going to be a complete game changer.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to be on a different level. Man, because when you're trying to deal with it on your own, when it's a relationship, dude, you're going to fail. I failed for 4 months. I sat there for 4 months stewing in my own like sadness and anger.
But while your wife is sitting there doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But
we're doing
hurting more. Yeah. Hurting a little bit more because she's the one that had to go, you know, her body, so to speak. And so, talk to each other. That's one thing. That's one advice I would give as a married woman, almost of 28 years, is talk it out. I shut down for a long time through our marriage, and it did us no good.
Yeah.
I would just get mad and not talk for days, 4 days. And I'm not even joking, because I didn't want to talk through tears. I felt like I was defeated if I talked through tears. Like, okay, you got one on me. But I'm crying because it made me so mad, you know, whatever the situation was. That's why I'm in tears. It's not because I'm heartbroken and I'm like, oh, you got me. Yeah. And so that is one thing, and I would say is just talk it out, like you said. Don't hold it in.
One thing that men do is they don't like to, like you said, I don't want to talk through tears. Because if I'm afraid that I'm going to break while I'm talking to you, I'd rather not talk about it.
Yeah.
And now looking back at it, man, dude, that was the silliest thing that I could have done with me and Michaela, because once I actually got to the place where I could talk to her about stuff got so resolved so fast.
Oh, it wasn't absolutely.
Funny. And I'm just like, where was this the first 7 years of our marriage, you know?
Yes, I get it. I so get it. But I think a strong man is one who cries. Yeah. In my eyes. Yeah. That's just me.
And it goes back to, you know, men have been raised in that John Wayne mindset where if you cry, you ain't a man, which is silly.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think you're less of a man because you cry. I think you're more of a man because you cry.
All right. So I got a final question for you.
Oh, buddy.
What advice would you give somebody who is just starting ministry or looking to get into ministry?
You really want me to answer this?
Yep. I want your full answer from you, Melissa Houck answer, not take down.
Well, looking to get into ministry. Don't be like me and think, oh, youth pastor, woo, I would love to marry a youth pastor. It looks like so much fun. Get into the nitty-gritty of it. I would say get in there and serve. Get in there and get behind the scenes. Get in there and learn what goes on, because we just see the front. We don't see everything behind.
Yeah.
As far as what people go through, how they're, you know, how they react to things, how I just feel like get involved first before you ever think about getting like involved.
Yeah.
Know what's going on, know the ins and the outs first, because I don't want to say be guarded, because I feel like that's just kind of cliche. I just think that you do have to have tough skin, because people will fail you when you think those people wouldn't fail you. Those are the first ones that will fail you. And I think if you just get down to the nitty gritty of it, I don't know. It's just a hard question, because I don't want I don't want to steer somebody away
Yeah.
from ministry if they really feel called. I really don't. But it is not.
Well, it's not a game.
Well, it's not, and it's not. I mean, we're on the outside a lot, looking in. People that are, like say in the congregation or whatever. Oh, I really feel like God's calling me to, youth ministry, or like we see the fun part of it. Like I saw the fun part of it. I saw, woo, yay. We don't see the heartache. We don't see the late nights up praying for whoever. We don't see the time spent worrying about kids that come in, because there's all kinds of kids that come in a youth group who are hurting, who have horrible lives at home. Even the ones that have great lives at home, they still struggle with things. And you see that more, I think. So I just feel like just get involved and really ask first. Go to somebody, go to one of the leaders and be like, hey, I think I'm feeling called into the ministry. What is your take on it? What is the hard part of it? What is, because we just see the easy part.
Yeah.
People on the outside just see the easy part. And I think you need to know the hard part, and not to say that would steer somebody away from, being in it, but
it's the same thing goes back to you saying, if you're truly called, even the hard part, you're going to be like, okay, that's just part of the territory, right? Me personally, I would have never seen going into youth ministry and sitting with a youth kid waiting for the cops to show up because their parents was going to beat them.
Right. Right.
Chasing them outside their house with a weapon. I never would have pictured that myself. But, once, now looking back, I could never see myself doing something different.
Right.
And it's crazy because I made that stipulation that I didn't want leadership. And God's like, no, this is what I called you for. So I agree with you 100% that you definitely need to learn about the nitty gritty and the hard part of it. But go in there knowing that if this is what God truly called you to do, if this is where God truly placed you at, that hard part, He's still going to be walking with you.
Right. He's going to see you through it.
Yeah.
I know when we had a youth group back when we were here serving at Seminole, we had one or two that were cutting themselves. And you're just like, how did we not know this? Like, we just thought everything was going great, being youth pastors, and we had a big youth group, and then you find out the hard things, and you're just like, what? How do I help that?
Yeah.
I know nothing about that at the time, and you feel like a failure as a leader because you weren't maybe prayed up and you didn't know. But sometimes things just aren't, meant for us to know at the moment.
Well, God will challenge you with stuff too.
Oh,
like that's facts.
Yeah, it was pretty eye-opening. Pretty eye-opening. Yeah. So.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and I loved having you on.
Buddy.
Some great questions, great answers.
Hard questions. Hopefully, I answered them.
You answered them great. Tune in next time for episode 3. We'll have another great leader to fill your ears with some good answers to the questions.
Yeah.